Hey everybody, I'm here with Alec. You may know him from his YouTube channel. He has over 500,000 subscribers. He's a multi-million-dollar Etsy pod seller. Alec, thanks for being on my channel.
Thanks, Gina. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I wanted to have you on for the longest time. We met briefly, or we met not briefly, but during the Printify Amplified last year, and you went this year. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that. But before we talk about that, I thought I would ask you a question about you, just to get the my subscribers or followers familiar with you. If anybody doesn't know you, maybe you can tell us a brief what your origin story is and how you got into print on demand.
Yeah, of course. I guess a little bit about me is I kind of got started with online business and trying to make a little bit of money online back in 2019. So a little while ago now. And I really just had a lot of failures. I tried drop shipping and affiliate marketing and a few other businesses during that time, early 2019. And what ended up ultimately happening was I just ran out of money and I couldn't really afford to stay in those businesses because you need money to run ads and you need to kind of like host your business somewhere online. And so after trying those businesses and just running pretty much completely out of money because I was like a 19-year-old kid, I found this business called Print on Demand, which I'm sure all of us are familiar with.
Mhm.
And what I really realized was that I could do print on demand on Etsy, and by posting my products on Etsy, I wouldn't necessarily have to pay for as many ads on those products because since Etsy drives so much traffic to their site, you can leverage their free traffic that they're driving to get sales on your products more organically, which kind of lets you, make a little bit of profit and then reinvest that into growing the business more. And once I figured out I could do that, it was over. I kept making print on demand products and posting them for sale on Etsy and just using that free traffic method. That's what really compounded over time. And so that's really kind of how I got into it. I found a few different product trends throughout that time going into 2020 where I was able to sell face masks and things that kind of took off right away and made a ton of sales. And then over time, I had to grow a more sustainable business where I launched mugs and t-shirts and a few other products to grow, something that wasn't just a trend like face masks were back in 2020. But yeah, that's really how I got into it. Is just finding a business that fit me and met my needs where I was at.
That's awesome. I love that story. And the thing I like about your channel is that you show all of that. Like you show all the tips and tricks and how you got into it, and like really love to share. I think I'm a subscriber myself to your channel, and I watch a lot of the videos, and it's really great. I love all the informative things. My second question is kind of along that line is. What's your biggest tips for someone who wants to start print on demand now that you've been doing it for a while and you've done all these videos? What's some of the biggest tips that you can give?
Mm. Well, first, thanks for subscribing to the channel. I
Of
appreciate that.
course,
But
of course.
yeah, I guess I think that print on demand. Uh, if you're a beginner getting into it, I think that there's a few things I'd recommend. Obviously, being customer focused and thinking about your customer first is going to get you far in the long run. Taking care of your customer and also creating products for them. But at a little bit of a higher level, I think about it more of, as a business, there's not really a destination, in my opinion, that you're trying to get to. It's more of a journey. And so I try and think of print on demand specifically as like a journey that you're going through in the business world. And along that journey, you're going to hit milestones, whether that's sales or income. But when you think about it as a journey instead of just a destination that you're going to end up at, it takes all of the pressure off of it, and it kind of takes something that it feels really overwhelming at first because there's all these things that you don't know how to do, and it makes it feel a lot more attainable. Because I think a lot of people view it as something that you have to invest tons and tons of time and hours into, when in reality you can start it with just a few hours a day, and then gradually over time, after taking it one step at a time, you can grow it into something much bigger. So I think that if you're getting started, my biggest tip would be to view the business as a journey and not a destination. And it kind of takes the overwhelming feeling of, just getting started, and it makes it feel hopefully a lot easier.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people may get into print on demand thinking like I need to hit this in the like right now, and they get into it because they think that they're going to make, I don't know, $10,000 a month right away or whatever, and that's not necessarily the case. You got to love the journey and follow through, and there's certain steps, and yeah, I love that tip. Um, I know a lot of people right now, because print on demand is so big, and we're getting into Q4 with a lot of the big numbers and everything. What do most people have the hardest time with when starting print on demand? What have you seen with all of the people that you help?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, all beginners kind of face the same issues, which is that, like you just said, when it doesn't pay off right away, when it's not an immediate kind of reward, you start your business and you're like, all right, I'm going to make $10,000 a month, $5,000, whatever. And it doesn't happen right away. The consistency is really hard to maintain. It's something where if you expect that immediately, it's going to be really hard to continue going when you don't see those results right away. Maybe you can see those results a year out, but month one is going to be a rough month because you just have to, there's so much that you have to learn and there's so much you have to put in. And so I think that the hardest thing is the consistency of just showing up every day, dedicated to taking that next baby step and getting better. Now, I guess at a little higher of a level, I think that there's really three parts of the business.
Mm,
And I think that if you miss any one of these three parts, you have a really hard time growing the business. And so those three parts are research. So understanding your customer and picking someone that you're going to make a design and a product for. That's the first and foremost step, because if you don't know who your customer is going to be, then how are you going to create a good product for them or make a design that they would like? So that's why I built Listing View, which we can talk about later if we have time. But research is the very first step. After that, you have to make a good design. It has to be good, right? That's ultimately what the
mhm.
customer's buying. And then third is you have to market it, and you have to get people to see the design that you actually made and the product that you posted for sale. So if you miss any one of those three, research, making a good design, and marketing it, you're going to have a really hard time in business overall. Those, in my opinion, are the only three things that really can grow your business overall. And if you miss them, it's what, like, it makes the business super hard to do.
Yeah, I totally agree with those three. I've been saying those things a lot too. Like you have to like just throwing up designs up there and hoping it was not a great strategy, right? So yeah, having what you said, those three things is perfect. I think that a lot of new print on demand sellers need to learn that or know that before going in, and it's not just making t-shirt designs and I have a t-shirt shop. Why aren't people buying my designs, or mug shop, or whatever product you want to sell? I think it works for that. Those three things work for whatever product, right, that you're selling. So cool. I wanted to go into a little bit. Well, we met at Printify's conference last year. I know you got to go again this year. How was it? Can you tell us a little bit how it was and why? What do you like about Printify? Maybe talk about Printify for those that don't know what Printify is.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I guess for those who don't know, I actually met Juna in person last September. I guess, yeah, 2024, and so that was
Hmm.
a great time. We weren't on a panel together, but we were at Printify's event together, like in the back room. So we actually met, and then we're now catching back up a year later. And so I just attended Printify's recent event that was also in September, and it was great. I guess I can share a little bit of behind the scenes and kind of what goes on when you attend the Printify event. And
Okay.
so this year specifically, everyone shows up. It's like a 20-hour plus travel to get there, at least from
Hmm.
the States, at least for me. It takes a very long time to get there. So you're totally wrecked when you show up. But it's usually held in Riga, which is in Latvia. And when you show up, basically you go to the hotel, you try and sleep for as long as you can, and you get like 3 hours of sleep. And then the next morning, everyone kind of meets up at the Printify office. You speak with the execs or the upper management within Printify and Printful. Then this year, everyone went on a facility tour of one of the Printful print facilities. I actually missed that, but yeah, it sounded really cool. It was like actually one of the warehouses where they print and ship orders out of. So that was really cool. And I think that overall this year they kind of focused on really separating the two brands. So for anyone who isn't familiar, Printify and Printful are both print-on-demand companies. And last year they had a merger, so they kind of, I guess, merged their two businesses together. And this year they really dove into how they're going to operate as one business, but also keep their two entities separate and make it so that Printful is focused a little bit more on brand building, where Printify is perfect for more of the drop shipping type print on demand
Mm,
sellers. And so that was something that I learned this year when I attended. I thought that was kind of a cool angle that they took, and also kind of understanding the differences between the two businesses, where Printful is an in-house print-on-demand company. They print and ship all of their orders from Printful facilities, whereas Printify, they let you integrate with a bunch of different print facilities that are going to
mhm.
print and ship your orders. And one of those print facilities is Printful, now that they've merged. So it's kind of cool how they're operating the two different businesses under one roof. But overall, yeah, it was a great time. And anyone who gets to explore Riga, let me know. Let me know if you do it.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I had a great time there. Love Riga. Loved the trying out the different foods there and everything. And I can't say enough about Printify. I did a video about it last year, but yeah, Printify is so cool. They're really good hosts, and they it was good to talk about. Maybe can you talk? I know you talked about this as one of the tools. I watched one of your recent videos as Printify being a tool for print on demand. Can you talk about why you pick Printify and like maybe the best products on Printify that you use for selling on Etsy or wherever you sell?
Yeah, absolutely. I've when I got started back in 2019, I played around with a bunch of different print on demand providers. I knew
Uh-huh.
that I wanted to sell print on demand products because it was allowed on Etsy, and so I uh, I tried to look at which print companies are going to give me basically the most access to products, but also give me great quality and great prices for those products. Because at the end of the day, as a business owner, like, it's your job basically to find the best quality, but also get the best price for the
Mm,
quality.
mhm,
And after testing different companies. I tested Printful, I tested some other ones like Gelato, and there's a bunch of other, uh, you know, print on demand providers that you can use. I found that Printify offered the biggest catalog, but also the best prices. And the other really cool thing about using Printify is the fact that they have this global network. So as a US seller, sometimes the shipping international can take a lot longer than just shipping a domestic order. So if my products are fulfilled in Texas or Florida, they'll arrive within maybe 5 business days. So it doesn't take that long for for the customer to actually receive their product. But if someone from Europe orders my products, well, it can take a lot longer because they still have to print and ship the order, but now it has to travel internationally. So one cool thing about Printify is they have their order routing, and they'll route your order to a print facility that's much closer and even sometimes local to the customer. So if you sell a product in Germany as a US seller, sometimes you can use a print facility within Germany to get that product printed and shipped to your customer, and it'll take the same amount of time. It'll take maybe around 5 business days to actually get to the customer, which makes an absolutely massive difference when you're doing something like an online business and you can sell globally. Printify actually enables you to do that and still let your customers enjoy quick shipping times. So as a tool, those are some of the reasons why I've chosen it and why I continue to choose it to this day, because they have the best prices, they have a great network, and they have, one of the best catalogs. And you ask, like, well, which products are the
mhm.
best? I think that comes down to, we talked about research a little bit. I've always had the most success selling products that are the most competitive. And it almost sounds backwards at first, but from my experience, if you try and sell something like a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, there's already such a large market for it because people are so used to buying these items. Whereas if you try and sell something a lot more niche, like a shower curtain, for example, or a bath mat. It's still a cool product, and you can make a great design for it, and it might look perfect, and it might be a super great and useful product in itself. But if there's not that demand, if it's not already a bestseller, you're going to have a hard time building up those consistent sales that come in every single day and turn it into that business that you're probably looking for. So I'm sure you've had experience with that as well. Selling those more niche products, it's cool and it's fun, but you really build up the reliable business by selling the best sellers like the ones that Printify has. The t-shirts, the sweatshirts, the hoodies, um, and and having access to those products and the specific brands that they sell within Printify. That's where I've really unlocked the most amount of money.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, and in fact, that's why I'm called Detour Shirts, because I tried different products, and I own more T-shirts than any other product. Right? I own one shower curtain, and I don't buy multiple shower curtain, but I have like 20, 30 T-shirts. Right? So it made a lot of sense. Yeah.
Exactly.
Great. I want to talk a little bit about tactics now. And we talked about kind of the basics, like if you're just starting print on demand, where you should go, what some of the downfalls are, or things that people struggle with. I want to talk about or help people that are already doing print on demand. Do you have any specific tactics for Q4 now that we're in Q4? Is it any different than the rest of the year? And what are some things that we should do now that we're in Q4?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. Q4 is obviously probably your favorite time of the
Yeah,
year as well
it
as
is.
mine.
Yeah.
So this is, the few months that we all look forward to as e-com and print on demand sellers. So obviously it's an exciting time. I personally, I end up making about 60 to 70% of my income these 3 months out of the year.
Wow.
So I'm not sure if the split is the exact same for you, but
Mhm.
I'm like heavily Q4 seller, and it's been that way since I got started. So ever
Mhm.
since 2019, year after year, these 3 months are where I make the absolute most amount of money. And obviously, it's still consistent throughout the year, but it really lumps together at the end of the year. So, for everyone who is already a seller, this is the time where I think it really pays off. You start to see all of the work that you've put in from January. It usually snowballs and all starts to pay off. At least that's how it does for me. So the work, quarter one, two, and three, it really pays off in quarter four. Now, specific tactics, I love that question because it's like, what can you do differently in quarter
Mhm.
four? And I actually do think that there's a couple things that I find myself doing just a little bit differently. And the first is focusing more on the trending items. And the reason I say that is because, quarter one, two, and three, I really try and build up my catalog with products that are evergreen. I try and build up the more sustainable, the evergreen products and designs that I list in my shops. I try and have those, through the more, I guess you could say, a little bit more boring months. I try and post those regularly. I'll still hop on trends if they're really obvious and they're easy to catch. But in quarter four, it makes a ton of sense because there's already such a huge amount of sales volume, and all of those evergreen products that you've been posting throughout the year. That's when they're really the most active. That's when they're getting the most sales. So specifically in quarter four, if there's trends available, I'm going to hop on those and I'm going to try
Nice.
and capitalize on those as much as I can. And on top of that, I also really think that it's the time where you have to spend the most amount of effort on your customer service. Like, you have to take care of your customers the most in Q4. They're buying products as gifts. They're the ones that are going to come back to your shop. They're going to remember where they bought, their gift for their best friend or their mom or their sibling or whoever. And throughout the year, that's when you make your repeat customers. And so it's easy to focus on the new customers, but great customer service can bring those same customers back. And that's a cheat code to kind of, snowballing your business over time as well.
Those are great tips, and I like that you can hop on the trends and you can see, like, I guess you get a lot more data too during Q4, right? Of what's selling, because everybody's selling, so like you can see that and can hop on those things. All right, I wanted to talk about, yeah, you mentioned this already a little bit. There may be more, so I want to say, like, so now we know the tactics for Q4. I want to flip it a little bit and say, like, okay, after the Q4 rush, we get back into Q1. You mentioned that this is when you kind of do all your evergreen stuff. Is there anything else that you do different in Q1 that you would do uh, throughout the year and different times of the year?
Yeah. Uh, so this comes back to, what do you do to actually grow the business?
Hmm.
And so for me, like we kind of already touched on, you have your research, you have to make a good design, and then you have to market it. And so really what it comes down to is getting quality products listed in your shop, and then getting people to see those products. That is ultimately, the business at its
Hmm.
most fundamental level. You have to make something and then get people to see it, and that will tell you the direction you need to go in, whether it's make a different design or double down on the design that you just posted, for example. But Q1 through Q3 is really focusing on that process. How do we find customers, which is the research step?
Hmm.
How do we make great designs for that customer? And then how do we obviously list it, but then also get that customer to see the product? It's really just solving those three areas and then doing it over and over again for a bunch of different niches. So, I know you're a shirt seller. I sell a
Hmm.
lot of shirts. I agree. I only have one shower curtain, so I'm not gonna, make a bunch of different ones. I only really need one. I'm not switching it
Hmm.
out. But yeah, if you sell t-shirts, the idea behind it in my mind is, I'm going to sell t-shirts to as many different niches as possible. I'm going to create as many different designs as possible. And it really unlocks, in my mind, so much opportunity, because I can find people that like a Halloween design or a fishing design or a
Hmm.
Christmas design. And then I can go and create a great design for them and list it for sale. And so repeating those three steps: research, design, and market. If you like, Q1 through Q3 is just mastering those three steps. And it sounds almost too simple, but and maybe you have a different strategy, but to me, it just always comes back to those three basics. And if you really dedicate the time to mastering those three, and you do it over and over again, over time, your business snowballs and compounds. So overall, it sounds basic, but those are the three things that I always come back to, no matter what time of year.
Yeah, no, that's it. Got to stick to the basics. Like those three things are key. So I agree too. Like you can always research and upload and do those things. So and yeah, I like that strategy. I think like we said earlier in the question before, like that's the main thing for print on demand. And now we talked about t-shirts a little bit, and I watching your channel, you do talk a little bit about digital products. So I wanted to get your thoughts on selling digital products and maybe even AI with digital products. What are your thoughts on those two things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so if you've seen my channel, you probably know I'm also a fan of digital
Yeah.
products. And I actually think there's a few reasons for that. The first is because, in my mind, a digital product and a print on demand product are very similar. And that's because, as a seller, you're really creating the design for the product. And it's really what the customer receives that's a little bit different. And I'll tell you a little bit of a story, because this
Okay.
is what really made this click for me. But when I was first kind of getting started, back in later 2020, I started selling custom map prints. So I found a tool that I could use to generate maps of different areas around the world. And so I created these listings where a user could come on and they could tell me what location they want. I would generate the map for them, and then I'd send them the digital file. So it was like a custom map download, and it would label all the streets and everything. So it was pretty customized to their area. But what I realized was that a lot of these people were just, they would buy the download and then they'd go get it printed somewhere. So it's a digital product that then they had to go, find a local a print shop or like a FedEx or something that they use to print out the actual poster so that they could hang it on their wall. So I was like, well, why can't I do that for them? So that's where I started to link that a digital file, a digital product, can basically be the same thing as a print on demand product. So I listed poster prints for sale in the same listing. So they could either buy just the digital file, or they could buy that same map design just printed on the poster ready for them to go, and that would get shipped to them. So again, I used Printify to fulfill all those orders. So if they ever ordered the actual poster print, I would just upload it to a poster, and then I'd have that printed and shipped directly to the customer. So it was essentially the same exact work for me because I was still having to, create those map prints and get them shipped to the customer. But the difference was that the customer got the final product. They got the actual poster or the framed canvas or whatever that they could go hang on their wall. So that meant that I could charge a little bit more for it, which means I made a little more profit. And that's really where I linked in my mind that a digital product is pretty much the same as a print on demand product. It's just what the customer is getting that's really different. And so that's why I'm such a big fan of both, is because whether you're a print on demand or a digital product seller, in my mind, it's almost the same exact thing. Like, you're just creating the design, you're not really managing inventory or having to do much work yourself, especially if you're using Printify. So that's, in my mind, that's why I like them both so much. Now, obviously, some digital products are only digital products and you can't get them printed on a t-shirt. Like if you're creating like a downloadable spreadsheet or something, or a template for something, like you're not gonna, I mean, maybe you want to, but I'm not gonna print that on the t-shirt. And so there's definitely different categories for them, but on the back end, for the seller side, it's essentially the same business. And so on top of that, like you mentioned, AI,
Mhm.
I think that for both businesses, whether you're doing just digital or you're doing print on demand, yeah, if you're not using AI, then you're probably, not doing things as efficiently as you could, whether it's coming up with ideas or literally making the product, or, any area. I think that there's always somewhere that you can implement AI to work faster and be more efficient. What do you think? Do you use AI
I do.
too
I do
much in your
use
business?
AI almost every day, actually. So I use it to help me with my listings, like my the title and description and stuff. I actually have it help me with phrases, like come up with new phrases. I use it to help me create digital, like the artwork as well sometimes, because a lot of times when you go look on Creative Fabrica and Kiddo and like they have great graphics there, and but they may not have the thing that you want, like the exact thing, and that makes you stand out, right, from everybody else. If you're using, like I say this all the time, if you're using things that are already out there, other people have access to that. But if you can create your own creative thing with AI, then chances of somebody having that are a lot less, right? So you can stand out that way. So I use it for that. I use it for a lot of things. I love AI. I know a lot of people kind of want to be a purist and not want to use it for other things, but it's been super helpful for me, and I don't
Mm.
mind using AI as a tool. So
Do you use AI to create entire designs for your products, or do
sometimes,
you
yeah,
find
yeah.
yourself like using it to create an element of a design?
Most of the time, I use it to create a graphic because I want to make sure that I want to kind of put the text in a certain way, and I'm creative that way. And right now, most of the AI apps don't put the text like in a creative way. They like just they kind of block it and just do like text, 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 or very simple with the text. And
Hmm.
I kind of want to be more creative with my flow. I know I'm doing this a lot, but it the like the text effects, right? Like Kiddo has or whatever, you can do it. So most of the time, I use it for the graphic, like coming up with a crazy unique graphic that nobody has, that hopefully that stands out. And a lot of times the graphic is enough. Like sometimes your design doesn't need any words. So I guess in that case it does make the full design. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Speaking of AI, though, as a tool, I wanted to ask, what are some other tools that people may use as print-on-demand sellers? We talked about AI, and there's a whole bunch of different AIs. Maybe you want to talk about one specifically as a tool, but are there other tools that print-on-demand sellers should be using to help them with their sales?
yeah. There's all kinds of tools out there, and they all serve a different purpose.
Uh-huh.
And I think that ultimately it comes down to what your particular goals are or what pain point you're facing. So obviously, we use Printify as
Mm-hmm.
the
That's a
backbone of
tool.
our business
Yeah.
because I don't want to sit here and print and fulfill shirts all day long. I know you
Right.
don't probably either, but
No.
so that's where Printify comes into play. We obviously use, I think the websites that we sell on are tools as well. So
Mhm,
Shopify is a tool, Etsy is a tool. It's a tool to sell our products. So
mhm, mhm.
obviously you need those as the foundation for your business. And like you just said, there's other areas like ChatGPT is a great tool to help you come up with the sayings, titles, tags, helps you come up with ideas. You can use different AI tools to help you, create designs for your products. You can help them, you can use them to create videos
Mhm.
using your product mockups. So there's a lot of different areas depending on where you're particularly struggling. And then obviously, I always recommend using my own tools, of course, like Listing View.
Yeah.
Helps you do research and things like that. It helps you, identify what's already selling so that you can, figure out, like I said, who those customers are, so that you can then go create products and designs for those customers. So yeah, I think it really comes down to what your need is and then finding a tool that fills that need. And like I said, there's a lot of great tools out there. I obviously going to be a little biased to my own, but that said, I think you definitely need the core tools. You need a place to sell, you need a production partner, and then everything else kind of just helps you be more efficient, helps you run your business more, I guess, smoothly overall.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk a little specifics then. I know we talked about. I wanted to get into like listing view and kind of show people what that looks like and how that works. What do you use for creating the designs? I know we can. I use, for example, I use Kittle, sometimes Canva, like Affinity Designer. How about you? I know you mentioned Figma. Do you still use that?
Yeah, so Figma is great for like I basically use Figma instead of Canva.
Okay.
So whenever someone else would be using Canva, I typically like to use Figma instead. I
Uh,
think it's because I got started on it and it's
mhm,
kind of, something that I'm just more familiar with, but also uh, if you've ever used it, and Canva has a similar feature, but it's essentially a big whiteboard. You
mhm,
can kind of think about it like that, where you can have all of your designs just on one page. And for
mhm,
me, that makes it really easy to manage everything and come up with new ideas and make copies of existing products. Because one of the ways that I have found success is by iterating off of one
mhm.
idea. So I'll maybe create one design and then I'll duplicate it and change the font. And then I'll do that a few more times and pick the one that's the best. And so it makes something like that a lot faster. So I definitely use Figma for like the basic and like storing all of my designs and creating them all. I do it all in Figma. But I also use some other tools, like you said, to come up with maybe a graphic. So I'm really a big fan of Midjourney. Still, I think
Okay.
it's one of the best for coming up with graphics and visual designs that you can add to your T-shirts or whatever product. I also like the new image models within ChatGPT. I think they're really
Mhm.
powerful, and that conversational kind of editing the graphic is also really cool. So those are the two like main AI tools. I also have played around with Kittle a little bit. We
Mhm.
actually included them in our presentation at Printify last year, or this year. So if you haven't checked that out, you can see kind of how Kittle works a little bit. I know you have videos on it as well, but yeah, uh, again, I think it comes down to your preference. And it also comes down to who that customer is, because a different customer is going to want a different style of design, and so understanding that style and the vibes that they're going after, it kind of tells you how to create the design, if that makes sense. So like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure you've experienced that, where if you're selling products for a nurse or something, like they're going to want a different vibe of design than someone who's really interested in anime. And so those two niches might require a different tool to get the right vibe.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
my
That totally
experience.
makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, I like those. I like that we have options today in 2025. We can try all different styles and options for that. All right, I want to get into listing view. Now, listing view is yours. I want to kind of have like maybe you can show us how it works. And it's for Etsy, isn't it? Or is it
Yeah.
for
So
more than just Etsy?
yeah. So right now, I'll explain a little bit about it, and then
Okay,
we can hop into the computer if that
awesome.
makes sense, and I can show
Yes,
you
yes, let's
around.
do it.
But so I actually bought Listing View last year, and so I
Okay.
bought it off of someone else. and then we essentially reworked it, and now it has become Listing View. So it wasn't called Listing View when I bought it.
Okay.
Rebranded it to Listing View, and essentially what it is a tool to help you do research and manage your business.
Okay.
That is the slogan is to help you find your next bestseller. And so it really addresses that first step that I talked about, where you need to research and figure out who your customer is. Then you make them a good design and then you market it. And so it really addresses that first step of researching and finding who your customer is going to be. And so at a very high level, Listing View helps you view listings. It helps you find which listings customers want right now so that you can identify that demand and then you can create products for them. And so it does a few things differently than some of the other tools that are out there. And I can touch on those differences.
Okay.
And like you said, right now, it is basically a database of Etsy listings that helps you
Hmm.
analyze all those listings. Uh, and we're adding other platforms as well. But essentially, Listing View is going to stay a research tool. It's going to
Hmm.
help you find bestsellers and eventually across marketplaces. So we're currently working on a TikTok integration as well. So you'll be able to
Cool.
see like which products, if you want to see t-shirts that are bestsellers on Etsy and TikTok and Amazon, you'll be able to do that. Right now, again, it's just Etsy, but that's the direction for anyone who's curious about that.
That's really cool. Okay. Yeah, I like that. And by the way, things that sell on Etsy also sell well on Amazon too. So I think you're right on to start with Etsy anyway. I feel like that's kind of the flow. Like it hits Etsy first and then it hits Amazon anyway. So if you can get knowing what's selling best on Etsy, you kind of have a heads up or a leg up on those that are creating just for Amazon. So I think that's really good that you started there. Yeah, do you
Yeah,
want to share something?
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Well, I was just gonna say, like it's the same vice versa.
Yeah.
There's a product selling on TikTok or Amazon. There's a really good chance that you can sell it well on
True.
Etsy as well, and so that's why we want to have like this,
Everything.
all of the platforms integrated. So yeah, that's the direction. But we can hop into my
Yeah.
computer if you'd like, and I can show
Let's
you
do
around
it.
a little bit. So this is what you see when you open up Listing View.
Cool.
Basically, there's three kind of core features, and they help you find your next bestseller. That's ultimately the goal of Listing View. But from a high level, Listing View is a database of Etsy shops and listings and
Okay.
keywords.
Okay.
So when you open up Listing View, you'll see basically we're on the database right now, and we have the listings tab selected. So this is a bunch of Etsy listings. Right now we have, you can see 80 million Etsy
Wow.
listings in the database. So
Okay.
there's a ton of them in here. If we switch over to shops, we have over 500,000 shops that you can
Wow.
search from and analyze. And then we have a little over 500,000 keywords as well.
Okay.
And so I'll kind of briefly talk about those. But yeah, the idea here is we want to make it so that you can find best selling products
Hmm.
in your niche. Like for
Okay.
the product that you're selling, we want to help you find the best sellers. And in order to do that, you really need to see what's selling well right now.
Right.
And the best way that I've found to do that is by looking at a metric, which is monthly sales. I'm sure that we're all kind of familiar with that.
Okay.
And Etsy doesn't give you that metric like out of the box. You can't really see that metric on Etsy.
Oh,
You need to have a tool and
yes.
calculate it. And
Okay.
so one of the reasons why I wanted to do this with Listing View is because a lot of the research tools out there, what they do is they estimate sales for a listing or a shop, and then they'll just divide that total number of sales by the age of the listing.
Oh,
So, for example, if a listing has made 200,000 sales
yeah.
and it's been available for 91 months, it might show that it's making like 2,000 sales a month, because that's what it would roughly be, just
With the math.
200,000
Yeah.
divided by 90.
Hmm.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But in reality, it might not be selling that well right now, which could be a little bit misleading and cause you to think that some products are doing better than
Right.
others. And
Right.
that's a real problem because, for example, a face mask, like if it made
Right, right, right,
almost
right.
170,000
In
sales
2020, yeah.
in 2020. If you just divided it by 66 months, it would still look like it's selling really well,
Yeah,
but in fact, it's actually not selling at all anymore.
right. Yep,
And
yep.
so that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this is
Smart.
just look at monthly sales. So now we can sort and we can see which products are selling the best this month.
Wow.
And then we can use that with a search. So, for example, if you're selling like a sweatshirt, we can
Okay.
search for sweatshirts that are making the most sales this month. And so now
Wow.
we can see, like, sorted by monthly sales, these are the ones that are doing the best.
Okay. That's
And so
easy.
that's kind of exactly that's kind of the idea here. There's a ton of data in the database. There's like a bunch of different columns that you can add, so you can
Oh, wow.
really,
Okay.
yeah, view the data like
How you
however
want it.
you want.
Yeah.
So you don't have to use it the way that I use it. But that's the idea is we help you figure out, okay, I'm selling a sweatshirt. I want to see which ones are working best right now. And here you go. So now you can see them and you can click in to analyze them, which I can show in just a second.
Okay.
But the other thing that I wanted to mention is this outlier score right over here. So
Yeah.
you can see there's an outlier column with a value.
Yeah.
And I really like this because what it does is it's showing you how well this particular listing is performing relative to the other listings in the same shop.
Oh, in the same
So,
shop, their shop.
exactly.
Okay.
And so the reason this is relevant is because, as you know, these shops that are massive and make, tens of thousands of sales each month, if they
Right.
post any listing, it's probably going to get sales because
Right,
it's
right.
just such a massive shop, and Etsy specifically is going to push them a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
So the outlier score tells us, well, even for the shop it's posted in, this listing is performing 141 times better than all the other listings in the
In the
shop that
shop.
it's listed in.
Right.
And so this really helps you find, which listings are basically like the
The
gold
winners
mine
of
listings.
their, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's super super useful, and as a visual indicator. And we also have a little plugin that you can install in the Chrome browser. So when you're browsing on Etsy, we'll show you the little outlier badge right below
Whoa,
the listings. So you can
that's
just
cool.
see right away, like, which listings are performing well relative to the shop. So those two things alone are part of the reason why I wanted to do this, is because
Mhm,
you want to see which listings are doing well, but also you have to adjust for the size of the shop, and that's what
mhm,
the outlier score does.
mhm. Yeah, I like that
So
'cause that's kinda what YouTube does too, right? Like, when you see a bigger channel getting millions of views, but that channel always gets a million views, then that's not as cool as a outlier where, a smaller, channel may get a million views and like, "Oh, whoa, this has something," right? So, yeah.
exactly, like a Mr. Beast video
Yeah,
is always going to get 100 million views.
right, yeah, no matter what.
So it's like that idea is still good, but adjusted for a smaller channel, it might not
Yeah,
do the same.
right.
So that's exactly right. That's actually where I got the idea for
That's
the
a cool
outlier
idea.
score on listings. So,
Yeah.
yeah, great catch there. But yeah, so it's what Listing View does, and obviously, um, we've got the database. You can click through and you can view basically the stats of listings
Cool.
and shops. So you get this breakdown and it shows you a bunch of details. It's going to show you the approximate sales and revenue, the
Wow.
type of the listing. It'll show you the trend over time. That outlier score, the evergreen
Okay.
badge, only shows up if a listing, like, basically is selling really well over time. It's kind
Uh-huh.
of the idea there.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, there's a lot of other features, but the last thing I'll really touch on is the tag analysis. And so it's really
Oh,
like keywords and
keywords.
tags. And
Yeah,
so
that's so important.
it's so important because, especially on a platform like Etsy, where, personally, I really, as I mentioned, like, when I was getting started on Etsy, I didn't have a ton of money to throw at ads. And so
Mhm.
I was relying heavily on Etsy's free traffic.
Yeah, SEO, huh?
And so the SEO is so important. And even if you do run ads, you still need to have good SEO in your listings. Otherwise, the ads aren't going to perform well because
Makes
they're not going to
sense.
hit the right customer. And so what we do here is we show you a breakdown of all of the tags that are in each listing. So if
Okay.
you're curious, which tags are likely driving the most sales to this listing, the listing that's doing around 20,000 sales, what tags, what keywords are they using in that listing that are likely driving those sales? And so that's what we break down over here. You can see the score. We show you
Mm-hmm.
roughly, which keywords are going to be driving
Wow,
most of that traffic.
that's so
You
cool.
can see like how many competing listings there are, how many views, and then you can go in. Obviously, like you could go analyze one of these keywords and see
Oh,
how it's performing in itself.
wow.
And so you can kind of see the layers there. Like we got
Hmm.
the top level database, helps you find a product, and it helps you find the keywords to use in your listings. We give you the breakdown, and we'll even suggest some more keywords that you could put in that listing. And so that's kind of the gist. We
Nice.
just want to try and like the goal is a tool to help you find your customer and figure out how to get your product in front of them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's great. So you got the research part down. Of course, we're making nice designs, and then this part is part of the kind of the marketing side of it. That three-pronged approach that you were talking about, where you have the good SEO and the keywords. Now, you would take those keywords, and would you put that in the title, or you put it in the description? What would you do with those keywords once you have them?
yeah, exactly. That's a great question. So, like we just saw over here on the listing, these are going to be the tags from that listing on Etsy. So,
Okay.
Etsy allows 13 tags. So, you can
Okay.
see that this listing is using all 13
Nice.
tags.
Okay.
And this is the breakdown of those tags.
Yep.
And so, these would go, they're all 20 characters. So, these would go in the tags section.
Okay.
But it also works for like shorter search terms. So, for example, you can search for like a mascot sweatshirt and
Uh-huh.
see how that's performing over time. And you just saw the breakdown of this, like embossed sweatshirt.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's a keyword that we could put in the title.
Yep.
I would personally like look at the tags that a listing is using. I
Uh-huh.
would probably use their same tags, and then
Yep.
I would look at the similar keywords to try and get ideas for the title as well. Because
Okay.
you want maybe a little overlap, but you really want to cover as many searches as possible. And
Hmm.
so that's where I would look. I would look at like, um, maybe there's, I guess this is, yeah, so embossed sweatshirt. Maybe we're going to add some different, like a puff print emboss, something like that could go in the title. So, yes, to answer your question, it's specifically, we're breaking down how tags are performing, but those same, like the tag can work in the title. It's
Hmm.
just that sometimes your overall title is going to go over the character count that can be in a tag. So you can only have
Right.
20 characters in a tag.
Yeah. 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 That makes sense. Cool. This is really helpful. And I was also thinking while you were saying that you're doing the research on here, and the research kind of helps you know what to design anyway, right? Like that's why you do the research to create the good design. And once you have the good design, you have this too. So really cool how it all works together.
Yeah, exactly. It shows you like, all right, so if this is selling, what type of even mock-ups to use and what
Hmm.
type of fonts to use for
Hmm.
your product.
Hmm.
And like also when you're looking at a keyword, we'll show you what are the top listings using that keyword.
Yep.
So you can even like if like you can come and look and find like more similar products that are ranking for that
Right.
keyword. So it kind of all like ties together. The goal is just to help you find your next bestseller. So
Yeah.
that's the idea behind it, and
Really
that's what it
cool.
does.
Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome.
Of course.
Cool. So, my last question. Thanks for everything that you shared in this video. I think there's lots of good tips for those that are just starting out, those that are already doing it. We got talked about all the tools and everything, what to do in Q4 and Q1 and all of that. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we finish this interview?
I would say that anyone getting started, like the best time to start is right now. You're
Mhm.
never gonna regret, starting today and taking that first step. And so I would just, say a word of encouragement. You can do it just like Juna and I have done it. And besides that, make sure you're subscribed to Juna's channel. Lots of
Thanks.
lots of gold here. So
Thanks, man. Thanks for the plug. Speaking of plug, I'm going to plug you as well. Where can people find you? We have the website down here, listingview.io. I'm assuming that's what we just saw, right?
that's exactly. Yep, that's
And
what we just saw.
and then Alex Sheffy is your YouTube channel with, like I said, over 500,000 subscribers already. Congrats, man! You're one of my heroes.
Thank you.
And then of course you do a lot of content on there. Go watch his channel; it's amazing. A lot of good info there. Um, yeah, I think that's it. Anything we can do with? I'll put a link to this as well, right? Listing view in the description,
Yeah,
so people
exactly.
can get it.
We can find a link down below. You can also use the coupon code Juna,
Oh,
and you can
nice!
get an entire month free. So
Holy cow!
if you want
Thanks,
to check
man.
that out, you can
I had
see
no
that down
idea.
below.
What a good code, Juna. Uh, I'll put the link down there and make sure to say use the code Juna for what you say, a free month.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's amazing! And what a good time to get the free month in Q4 to get so much data right now and so many things selling. So thanks for that, Alec.
Of course, of course. Thank you for having me on, and thanks for doing this with me. It's been a ton
Yeah,
of fun.
anytime. We have to chat more often. I know we've only seen each other last year. We're gonna keep in touch more throughout the year and this next year. Thanks so much for being on my channel. It's been great. So until next time, man. See ya.
Sweet.
Bye.
Bye.